America secretly launched the biggest drug war in history, and nobody saw it coming. While politicians threatened to bomb Mexico, the real battle was already happening on the open seas, with ghost submarines, billion-dollar military operations, and high-tech weapons that sound like science fiction. But how did the U.S. turn the entire ocean into a battlefield? And what weapons did they unleash against the cartels? Join us as we see how the United States uses its destructive power to attack Mexican cartels. The meeting room fell silent when President Trump floated the idea. Missile strikes on Mexican drug labs. Public denial if anyone asked questions. Former Defense Secretary Mark Esper would later reveal this shocking conversation in his memoir, exposing a moment when America's drug war nearly became an actual shooting war. The proposal wasn't random. By 2021, fentanyl overdoses were killing 83,000 Americans every year. The synthetic opioid had tripled its death toll between 2016 and 2021, creating a crisis that traditional law enforcement couldn't touch. Drug labs operated openly across Mexico, while tons of deadly powder flowed north across the border. The American public demanded action. Politicians needed answers. In the halls of Congress, two Republican lawmakers saw an opportunity. Congressman Dan Crenshaw from Texas and Mike Waltz from Florida drafted legislation that would change everything. The Authorization for Use of Military Force Cartel Influence Resolution borrowed language directly from the 2001 War Authorization that launched America's fight against terrorism after September 11. The bill's wording was deliberately broad. Any president could use all necessary and appropriate force against foreign organizations involved in drug trafficking or territorial control through violence. The legislation listed 9 specific cartels by name, including the powerful Sinaloa and Gulf organizations. More dangerous still, it gave the president sole authority to determine which groups qualified for military action. Legal experts immediately grasped the implications. This wasn't just authorization for targeted strikes. The phrase necessary and appropriate force, combined with presidential discretion over which nations were affiliated with cartels, could justify a full-scale invasion of Mexico. The legislation essentially handed any future president a blank check for war. While Crenshaw dismissed criticism as hysteria, other lawmakers were pushing complementary measures that built a legal framework for military action. The House Foreign Affairs Committee advanced the Project Precursor Act, requiring the State Department to classify fentanyl as a chemical weapon under international law. Chairman Michael McCall called it exactly that, claiming cartels were using chemical weapons to perpetrate mass killing of Americans. The chemical weapons designation carried explosive legal consequences. International law permits military responses to chemical weapons attacks, even without explicit congressional approval. Syria had learned this lesson when President Trump ordered missile strikes in 2017 and 2018 after Damascus used chemical weapons against its people. The precedent was clear. Chemical weapons could justify unilateral military action. 18 state attorneys general escalated the rhetoric further, formally requesting that President Biden designate fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. The letter invoked memories of the Bush administration's justification for invading Iraq. A Justice Department legal opinion from that era concluded that presidents have constitutional authority to use force against weapons of mass destruction threats, even without Congress. Senator Lindsey Graham introduced his own legislation designating 9 Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. The designation would impose financial sanctions and criminalize any support for these groups. More significantly, it would place cartels in the same legal category as Al-Qaeda and other organizations America has spent decades fighting with military force. Each piece of legislation built upon the others, creating overlapping justifications for military action. Chemical weapons, weapons of mass destruction, terrorist organizations, authorization for unlimited force. The legal architecture for war was taking shape in Washington while cartels continued their operations across the border, unaware that America's political establishment was seriously considering turning the metaphorical war on drugs into something far more literal and devastating. While politicians debated war, cartels were already building one? But where? Deep in the Colombian jungle, the sound of hammering echoes through humid air, thick with mosquitoes and diesel fumes. Under a canopy so dense that satellites cannot penetrate, teams of workers shape fiberglass and wood into something that shouldn't exist. They're building submarines by hand, using blueprints drawn by men who never attended naval engineering school. The first narco submarine appeared in the 1980s as a simple underwater tube towed behind fishing boats. Colombian cartels learned quickly that the ocean floor hides better than any warehouse. By the 1990s, they had graduated to self-powered vessels, constructed in remote jungle clearings where military patrols rarely venture. Today's narco submarines represent a quantum leap in criminal engineering. These 80-foot vessels can travel 2,500 miles without refueling while carrying 10 tons of pure cocaine. Each submarine costs between $1 and $2 million to build in secret workshops, but the cargo they transport sells for over $150 million on American streets. 5 crew members endure weeks in cramped, overheated compartments with minimal food and no communication with the outside world. The submarines operate just below the surface, leaving almost no wake for patrol aircraft to spot. Engineers paint them blue-gray to match ocean colors, while streamlined hulls slice through water with minimal disturbance. Some models include lead lining that blocks heat signatures from military thermal imaging systems. The most sophisticated versions can dive completely underwater for short periods, disappearing from radar and sonar detection entirely. When authorities do locate a narco submarine, capturing it becomes nearly impossible. Each vessel includes specialized scuttle valves that can flood the compartments within minutes. Crews open these valves the moment they spot military aircraft or patrol boats, sending millions of dollars worth of evidence to the ocean floor in waters thousands of feet deep, where recovery is impossible. The submarine threat reached global proportions in 2024 when Operation Orion intercepted a vessel bound for Australia. The submarine had traveled over 10,000 miles across the Pacific Ocean, proving that cartels now possessed intercontinental capabilities. Intelligence agencies suddenly realized they were tracking not regional smuggling operations, but a shadow navy with worldwide reach. Above the surface, go-fast boats present an equally formidable challenge. These 30-foot vessels mount 3 or 4 250-horsepower outboard motors, creating floating rockets capable of exceeding 80 miles per hour on open water. Drug runners paint them ocean blue and load them with 2,000 gallons of extra fuel, enabling 500-mile journeys without stopping. The boats trace their lineage to Prohibition-era rum runners who perfected the art of outrunning Coast Guard cutters in the 1920s. Modern cartels simply updated the concept with contemporary technology. Each go-fast carries a single pilot to maximize cargo space, racing across international waters faster than most patrol boats can follow. The Coast Guard responded by creating hit-run helicopter teams equipped with precision rifles and trained snipers. When patrol aircraft spot a fleeing go-fast, helicopters swoop down from above, while marksmen use 50-caliber rifles to disable engines without harming crew members. The tactic proved so effective that cartels began disguising their speedboats as fishing vessels and developing hybrid craft that combine submarine stealth with surface speed. Intelligence estimates suggest that for every narco submarine or go-fast boat intercepted, 3 or 4 complete their missions successfully, delivering billions in drugs while their invisible armada grows stronger. How did 62 nations unite to destroy cartel empires? As drug cartels became too powerful for any single nation to manage, the world decided to collaborate. In January of 2012, an alliance was formed with a strong name for a challenging mission: Operation Martillo, meaning hammer in Spanish. 14 countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Spain, Guatemala, and Honduras, joined forces. Operation Martillo was not just another failed drug war initiative. It targeted the cartels where it hurt most: their shipping routes. Military ships, aircraft, and special forces patrolled the waters between South America and the United States, creating a formidable barrier for drug shipments to navigate. The results were swift. In the first year alone, authorities arrested 339 smugglers and seized 101 boats carrying drugs. In 2011, the operation confiscated 119 tons of cocaine, worth an estimated $2.35 billion on American streets. Authorities also seized $21 million in cash, heading back to the cartels, and $16 million worth of goods used to conceal or transport the drugs. Operation Martillo was only the beginning. In late 2024, Operation Orion took the multinational effort to a new level. This time, 62 countries participated, ranging from small nations with limited coastlines to major powers with large navies. Over 6 intense weeks, they shared intelligence, tracked suspicious vessels, and intercepted drug shipments across global waters. No previous drug operation had matched the success of Orion. The operation seized 225 tons of cocaine in one sweep, a world record. When combined with more than 1,000 tons of marijuana and other drugs, the total haul exceeded $8.5 billion in street value. Each country brought distinct strengths to the effort. The Americans provided advanced radar systems capable of detecting small boat wakes from satellites. The Dutch contributed underwater drones to inspect ships. Colombian forces used their expertise to locate launch sites in the jungle. Even landlocked nations are assisted by tracking money and communications. What made Orion revolutionary was not just its scale, but its advanced coordination. Military commanders from numerous countries collaborated in real-time command centers, sharing live intelligence and executing raids across multiple time zones simultaneously. When smugglers attempted to alter their routes after hearing about a bust, they would end up sailing into another country's patrol zone. These operations did more than remove drugs from the streets. They collected valuable intelligence. Each captured sailor, boat, and communication device offered new insights into cartel operations. Smuggling route maps became more detailed, and lists of cartel contacts grew longer. With every bust, the price of cocaine on American streets increased as supplies dwindled. The message was clear: the open seas were no longer safe for drug traffickers, regardless of how advanced their hiding methods were. With nations united against them, cartels required more effective tools to evade capture. But cartels didn't anticipate America's secret weapon at sea. How did one ship alone cost drug lords $500 million? In early 2025, one ship instilled fear in drug lords across South America. The United States Coast Guard cutter James became a floating nightmare for cartels during a relentless 112-day mission that drug kingpins still discuss in hushed tones. The cutter James is no ordinary vessel. At 418 feet long, this legend-class cutter is like a floating city with one purpose: hunting down drug smugglers. It carries a crew of 150 highly trained men and women who work in shifts around the clock. The ship can remain at sea for months without returning to port, making it the perfect predator for tracking drug routes. What made the 2025 mission extraordinary was its remarkable success. In just under 4 months, this single ship seized over 48,000 pounds of narcotics, enough to supply a mid-sized American city for a year. The street value reached approximately $510 million, making it one of the most financially devastating blows ever dealt to cartel operations. The January operations were particularly impressive. On January 5th, the ship's crew launched a drone that spotted a suspicious vessel off Ecuador's coast. Unlike regular military drones, the Coast Guard uses special maritime models that can fly for 18 hours straight while carrying advanced cameras capable of reading a boat's name from miles away. The drones silently tracked the vessel from high above until boarding teams swooped in, catching 3 smugglers with over 2,025 pounds of cocaine. Just 1 day later, on January 6th, they hit the jackpot. Maritime patrol aircraft working with the cutter James spotted 3 go-fast boats traveling together, an unusual and risky move for smugglers. Using their helicopter teams, they managed to stop all 3 boats in a perfectly coordinated operation, capturing 9 suspects and an enormous haul of 13,960 pounds of cocaine. The smugglers changed tactics on January 7th, deploying a low-profile vessel, a boat specifically designed to avoid radar detection. But the hit-run helicopter crew was ready. Using precision shooting skills, they disabled the boat's engines without harming the crew. Another 8,240 pounds of cocaine never made it to American streets. When smugglers tried to escape capture by dumping their cargo on January 18th, the cutter James didn't give up. Its high-speed pursuit boats chased down the smugglers, while other team members retrieved the floating drug packages from the sea. The recovered cargo, nearly 6,000 pounds of cocaine, would have brought cartels millions in profits. The Navy joined forces as well. Ships like the USS Minneapolis-St. Paul and USS St. Louis conducted their own busts in the Caribbean, adding hundreds more kilograms of captured cocaine to the total. These operations struck the Sinaloa and Jalisco New Generation cartels especially hard. Intelligence gathered during the missions revealed key smuggling routes, identified cartel members, and exposed new trafficking methods, all of which are now being used to plan the next wave of interdictions to further disrupt these criminal empires. But who controls these floating fortresses stalking the seas? Inside a nondescript building in Key West, Florida, sits the nerve center of America's maritime war on drugs. The Joint Interagency Task Force South operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, orchestrating the most complex anti-narcotics campaign in history. The command center resembles a high-tech war room from a blockbuster film. Massive wall-mounted screens display real-time maps of the Caribbean and Pacific, dotted with hundreds of moving icons representing every vessel, aircraft, and submarine in American territorial waters. Each blinking light tells a story. Friendly naval patrols, commercial shipping, suspicious go-fast boats racing through the darkness, or semi-submersible narco subs creeping beneath the waves. At workstations arranged in precise rows, analysts from a dozen different agencies monitor the digital battlefield. FBI counterintelligence specialists sit alongside Navy radar operators. DEA drug enforcement experts collaborate with Coast Guard boarding teams. CIA analysts share classified intelligence with customs officers tracking suspicious cargo movements. Representatives from allied nations, Colombia, Panama, and the Netherlands provide real-time updates from their own patrol zones. The integration runs deeper than shared office space. When a surveillance satellite detects an unusual heat signature off the Colombian coast, that information instantly appears on screens throughout the facility. Within minutes, analysts cross-reference the coordinates with known smuggling routes, weather patterns, and the current positions of American interdiction assets. A Coast Guard cutter 300 miles away receives new orders. A Navy helicopter launches from a forward base. A drone silently adjusts course to begin tracking the suspicious contact. This seamless coordination represents a revolutionary approach to maritime law enforcement. Traditional drug interdiction relied on chance encounters, patrol boats stumbling across smugglers during routine sweeps. JAF South transformed that reactive strategy into a predictive science. Powerful computer algorithms analyze years of seizure data, weather patterns, economic indicators, and cartel communication intercepts to generate probability maps showing where drug shipments will most likely appear. The command center maintains direct communication links with assets across 2 oceans. When USS Minneapolis-St. Paul reports radar contact with 3 high-speed vessels traveling in formation, JIDF analysts immediately recognize the signature of a major cocaine shipment. Within seconds, they vector additional ships toward the intercept point while launching maritime patrol aircraft to provide aerial surveillance. The response unfolds with military precision. LEDET teams, law enforcement detachment units, serve as the operational bridge between military assets and law enforcement authority. These specially trained Coast Guard personnel deploy aboard Navy warships, solving a critical legal challenge. Military forces possess sophisticated detection equipment and heavy firepower, but lack arrest authority in peacetime operations. Coast Guard teams bring that legal mandate, transforming destroyers and frigates into floating police stations. The technological edge extends beyond traditional radar and sonar systems. Advanced synthetic aperture radar can distinguish between different vessel types from orbit, identifying the distinctive wake signatures of narco subs running just below the surface. Infrared sensors detect the heat signatures of multiple outboard motors characteristic of go-fast boats. Communication intercept equipment monitors radio chatter and cell phone calls, often providing advance warning of planned smuggling runs. Intelligence flows in both directions through the network. Every interdiction generates valuable data about cartel operations, smuggling routes, and trafficking methods. Captured GPS devices reveal hidden supply caches. Arrested smugglers provide information about organizational structures. Seized communications expose cartel leadership hierarchies and financial networks. The command center maintains strategic partnerships extending far beyond American territorial waters. When British naval forces operating in the Caribbean spot suspicious activity, that intelligence immediately reaches Key West. Dutch patrol vessels near the Venezuelan coast share radar tracks with American analysts. Colombian marine units conducting riverine operations upstream report trafficking patterns that help predict coastal interdiction opportunities. This networked approach fundamentally altered the strategic balance in America's maritime drug war. Cartels once operated with impunity across vast oceanic expanses, confident that the sheer scale of international waters provided adequate protection. JAF South eliminated those safe havens by creating an integrated surveillance network spanning thousands of square miles of ocean. The psychological impact on trafficking organizations proved equally significant. Smugglers no longer face isolated patrol boats operating independently. They confront a coordinated intelligence apparatus that tracks their movements from production facilities in South America to distribution networks in North America. Every captured shipment provides additional data points, gradually mapping the entire criminal enterprise. From this Florida command post, America projects maritime power across two hemispheres, turning the open ocean into a controlled battlefield where drug traffickers face overwhelming technological and operational disadvantages. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.